The night was heavy with silence. Out in the fields, the corn swayed like whispers of secrets too old to be spoken aloud. And then, a truck appeared. Rusted, coughing smoke, dragging the weight of years behind it. Out stepped a man with eyes so pale they seemed to look through flesh and bone. His name was Jeremiah. To the outside world, he was just another drifter, another brother coming home after too long away. But to his kin, he was something else, something older, something bound by an oath made generations earlier, sealed in blood and shadows. What do you do when the person claiming your family name arrives not with love, but with a covenant that demands obedience? When a promise written a century ago threatens to tear apart not just a household, but everything they thought they knew about faith, duty, and survival? This is the story of a family trapped between fear and tradition, and the man who would claim them all. If you're hooked already, stick with us, because this story only gets darker the deeper we go. And hey, if you enjoy exploring stories that blur the line between history, folklore, and the shadows we carry within families, make sure you tap that like button, subscribe, and share this with a friend. It really helps keep these stories alive for more people who need to hear them. The gravel road stretched across fields, burned golden by late summer, carrying with it a silence that was too heavy, too watchful. At the edge of the Whitmore farm, an unfamiliar rumble disturbed that uneasy calm. The sound grew louder until a battered pickup emerged, coughing black smoke from its tailpipe. Its rusted body groaned with each movement, as if reluctant to roll forward, yet it pressed toward the farmhouse with stubborn purpose. Inside the kitchen, a boy pressed his forehead to the glass, eyes narrowing at the approaching figure. His father's boots echoed against the floorboards as he joined him, weathered hands tightening into fists with wordless recognition. The truck came to rest in front of the porch, and for a heartbeat the countryside held its breath. Then the door creaked open, and a tall, gaunt man stepped into the fading light, pale eyes unblinking. He carried no warmth of reunion. His frame was thin, almost skeletal, draped in worn clothing that looked more like relics than garments, yet it was his expression, a cold half-smile, that made his brother's blood run colder. "Jeremiah," the farmer muttered, voice low and strained. The name carried the weight of years, of secrets left unspoken around supper tables, of warnings muttered when boys dared ask about the brother who had disappeared. Jeremiah's smile widened, exposing yellowed teeth, the grin of someone too pleased with a moment no one else desired. "Little brother," he drawled, arms spreading as though expecting an embrace, though no one moved forward. The younger man's son shifted uneasily by the window, his jaw tense. He had never met this uncle, though whispers of his name lingered in barn lofts and porch steps whenever grown men spoke in hushed tones. Jeremiah's gaze wandered past his brother, past the boy, toward the farmhouse itself. His eyes glimmered with unsettling hunger, like a traveler searching for something long promised. "It feels the same," he murmured. "Untouched. Waiting." The farmer squared his shoulders. "You left. 15 years gone. Whatever you're looking for, it isn't here anymore." Yet his voice betrayed the tremor of a man who knew ghosts never leave willingly. Jeremiah dropped a duffel bag from the truck bed, dust rising from its canvas like old bones. "Left?" His laugh was sharp, brittle. "Driven, Bobby. There's a difference. The old ways don't fade just because you wish them gone." The boy edged closer to his father, studying his uncle with cautious eyes. There was no resemblance he could claim with pride, only the shadow of kinship, a bone-deep familiarity that unsettled him more than the man's grin. Robert Whitmore, farmer, father, brother, tightened his grip around the haft of a fence post still clutched in his hand. He had carried it absent-mindedly from the field, but now it felt like a weapon. Jeremiah smirked at the gesture, pale eyes glinting. "Still quick to guard what's yours. Always was." But tell me, little brother, how long can you keep out the tide when it rises?" His words slithered. The boy swallowed hard, sensing the tension stretched like wire between them. He had grown up knowing storms on the farm, tempests that bent trees and flooded fields, but this was different. This storm wore human skin. The air thickened, pressing against lungs as Jeremiah ascended the porch steps. Each footfall echoed louder than it should, as if the boards themselves remembered him, remembered nights when whispers lingered long after lanterns went dark. Robert stepped forward, blocking the doorframe, sweat tracing down his temple. "You won't cross this threshold, Jeremiah. Not tonight, not ever. Whatever business dragged you back here, it ends at this porch." His jaw clenched, but Jeremiah only tilted his head, studying his brother as one might study livestock before slaughter. "You say that as if you still believe you decide. You forget who came first. Blood remembers. Promises remain." Lightning flickered distantly, though no storm had been forecast. The boy caught the reflection of that pale spark in Jeremiah's eyes, and for a moment they seemed not eyes at all but empty glass, hollow, endless. The duffel bag sagged open at his feet, revealing papers yellowed with age. Their corners curled like dried leaves, marked with handwriting that did not belong to any schoolteacher or preacher the boy had ever known. Robert's throat tightened. He recognized the parchment, the ink, the cursed scrawl of a man long dead, yet never gone. His father's words, their grandfather's covenant. Jeremiah had carried it home like scripture. "You don't need to show me," Robert whispered hoarsely. "I know what it says." But Jeremiah only knelt, carefully unfolding the brittle paper, running his finger across faded lines as though they were holy writ. The boy leaned closer, unable to stop himself. The words swam with unfamiliar weight. Firstborn to firstborn, blood unbroken, duty beyond death. His stomach turned. He didn't yet understand, but dread pooled like stone in his gut. Jeremiah's voice rose with a sing-song rhythm, reading aloud with ceremonial tone. "The Covenant of Ezekiel Whitmore, October 13th, 1873. The cadence made the boy's skin crawl, every syllable heavier than it should have been. Robert lunged forward, snatching the paper from his brother's grip. It crinkled violently, nearly tearing in his hands. "Enough! Those words died with him. They have no claim on us now, no claim on my sons." Jeremiah straightened, smile never faltering. "And yet you keep them hidden in the strong box. You pretend they're gone, but you can't burn what binds flesh, can't bury what still beats in blood." His tone was calm. The boy's chest tightened as his father's hands trembled, paper crushed in fists. For the first time in his life, he saw his father look smaller, almost diminished, as if the very sight of Jeremiah had stolen strength. Jeremiah stooped to gather his duffel again, slinging it over one shoulder. "I'll not quarrel on the porch. I'll not raise my hand, not tonight. But the old ways will be honored, by one means or another." The boy shivered as Jeremiah's pale gaze lingered on him, a cold acknowledgement that seemed more like claim than recognition. His uncle turned then, striding back toward the truck, boots striking gravel with deliberate rhythm. Robert watched him retreat, chest heaving. He wanted to believe it was over, that Jeremiah would drive away and vanish again into the shadows of highways. But the covenant weighed heavy, and the silence answered otherwise. The boy touched his father's arm gently. "Who is he? Truly?" His voice cracked under the strain of dread. Robert's eyes, sun-worn and weary, closed for a moment. When they opened, they were filled with defeat. "He's my brother," Robert said, voice hushed as though speaking too loudly might summon him again. "And worse than that, he's the firstborn, which makes him something more, something the family never should have carried forward." The wind rustled through the corn, a sound that might have been ordinary on any other evening. Tonight, it was a whisper, a warning. The farm itself seemed to know Jeremiah was not finished. The boy stared at the truck's fading taillights, heart thudding. Questions filled him, but the one that clung hardest was simple. If Jeremiah was the firstborn, what did that mean for him, the next in line? Robert reached for the lantern on the porch rail, shielding its flame from the gathering breeze. "We'll talk in time," he muttered. His voice was weary, but beneath it was the edge of desperation. "But not tonight." The boy nodded slowly, though unease coiled deeper. He knew enough to recognize that silence could be heavier than truth. And in that silence, Jeremiah's presence lingered like smoke clinging to rafters long after fire has gone. Inside the farmhouse, shadows deepened. The boy could hear the walls creak, the groan of old timber shifting. Yet in each sound, he felt Jeremiah's presence, as if the man had left a piece of himself behind. Robert sank into his chair at the kitchen table, head bowed, hands still gripping the cursed paper. "He'll return," he whispered, mostly to himself. "He never came just to visit. He came because the time's near." The boy sat across from him, watching the lantern light dance over his father's weathered face. He wanted to ask what time, what covenant, what curse. But the weight in Robert's silence kept his mouth closed. Far off, the cattle lowed nervously, restless in their pasture. The night was not natural anymore. Somewhere beyond the fields, Jeremiah waited, and the farm knew it. The family knew it. And soon, the boy would too. The paper lay between them, fragile, yet unyielding, a relic of promises made long before either had drawn breath. Its words carried across time, demanding a price, yet unpaid. And now, Jeremiah had come to collect. The lantern flickered, guttering in the draft, shadows stretching long across the walls. The boy swallowed hard, feeling his throat tighten. He understood little, but enough to know this. The return of Jeremiah was only the beginning. The dawn came heavy and gray, the kind of morning where mist clung to the ground as though the earth itself tried to hide its secrets. The farmhouse awoke slower, burdened by unspoken dread. Robert sat at the kitchen table, mug of coffee untouched, staring at the crumpled parchment spread before him. His hands traced the faded words, though he already knew them by memory, etched deep as scars. His eldest son entered quietly, pulling a chair across the worn wood floor. The boy's eyes flickered to the page, curiosity gnawing at him. "Is that what he carried? The thing you feared?" he asked. Robert nodded slowly, jaw tightening. "It's the covenant. Written long before me, before my father. A chain forged in ink and blood. Every line meant to bind, every word meant to hold." His voice cracked. The boy leaned closer, scanning the script. Though archaic, its meaning was clear enough. Promises of prosperity, oaths of loyalty, binding generations together in a ritual that smelled more of superstition than faith. Yet Robert trembled. "You believe this?" the boy asked cautiously. Robert's silence was heavier than an answer. He stared through the parchment as though seeing ghosts that had walked his land, harvested his fields, cursed his family with every passing season. Robert finally spoke, voice hollow. "My father warned me never to forget. He told me our line was marked the day Ezekiel signed his name. Prosperity for bondage, abundance for obedience, survival for sacrifice." His words chilled. The boy frowned, struggling to reconcile these tales with the soil-stained reality of farm life. They had endured droughts, accidents, poor harvests, yet never spoken aloud of curses. Only whispered fragments carried from father to son. Robert's brother Jeremiah had vanished years ago, but clearly he had never abandoned the covenant. He had returned carrying it like scripture, declaring himself rightful heir as the firstborn, demanding fulfillment of obligations no sane man accepted. The boy asked, "What does it require?" Robert's eyes hardened. reluctant to speak. The firstborn son of each generation claims the next firstborn, sealing blood to blood. It began in the old country, carried here like a disease. The boy felt his stomach twist. "You mean marriage," he said, disbelief sharpening his tone. Robert nodded grimly. "That's what the words demand. And Jeremiah, he intends to honor them, no matter what it costs." His fists clenched. The boy recoiled. The thought vile, wrong. "That's madness. We live under law, under God. No piece of paper can demand such a thing." But Robert's weary expression told him the law had little sway here. Robert's memories drifted, voice low. "I was just a boy when Father showed me. He said the covenant gave us fortune. But I also saw his fear. He dreamt of figures watching from corners at night." The boy shivered, recalling his own dreams, shadows crawling across walls, whispers that woke him in sweat. He had dismissed them as nightmares, yet his father's words connected them to something darker, something older than sleep. Robert folded the parchment carefully, as though afraid even its brittle edges might burn him. "It isn't just superstition. It follows us. Livestock fail without reason, crops wither, accidents strike too often. It's as though the earth demands payment." The boy asked, "And if we refuse?" Robert's eyes met his, weary yet sharp. "Then it breaks us. That's the truth Jeremiah believes, and maybe he's right. The family has never escaped. Those who tried suffered." The boy clenched his jaw, unwilling to surrender. "But maybe there's another way. If it was written, it can be broken. Men made this oath, not God." His words burned with defiance, though Robert only sighed. "Every man who said that before paid dearly," Robert replied. "Your uncle left to avoid it, but now he returns with conviction. He means to see it through. He thinks it will save us." The boy slammed a fist against the table, rattling the mug. "Save us? Or damn us? How can he believe binding lives to paper written by a dead ancestor brings salvation?" His voice echoed against wooden walls. Robert's expression darkened. "Because sometimes it worked. When I was young, we had seasons of plenty, yields beyond measure, cattle healthy, storms that passed us by. Father called it proof of the covenant's blessing." His shoulders sagged. The boy's mind raced. Prosperity bought with submission. Fortune gained through sacrifice. He had seen the hardships, neighbors suffering worse, men ruined by weather. Had the covenant shielded them? Or had belief twisted coincidence into cursed certainty? Robert stood, pacing the floorboards. "I burned to forget, to bury it. But Jeremiah, he never let go. He studied, traveled, searched for proof. Now he's come back, carrying the covenant like a sword. He'll force us." The boy watched his father's steps, heavy with defeat. "Then we fight him," he said firmly. "We don't bow to his madness. We don't give him what he wants. We choose freedom over chains." His eyes blazed. Robert paused, torn between admiration and fear. "You speak like a man, but this isn't a fight of fists. Jeremiah believes more than words. He carries something else. The covenant isn't just ink. It has teeth." The boy leaned forward, voice low. "Then we break its teeth. We find its weakness, its flaw. No chain is unbreakable. Every oath has limits. Ezekiel was just a man. He bled. He feared. He erred." Robert's lips pressed thin. He wanted to believe his son, but memory whispered otherwise. He remembered his father waking screaming in the night, muttering about eyes in the dark. He remembered neighbors speaking of strange figures near fields. The boy pressed on, refusing to yield. "Jeremiah isn't fate. He's a man who clings to ghosts. If we let him win, then we make the curse real. If we resist, maybe it dies." Robert lowered his gaze, torn by doubt. "I've felt its hand. I've seen livestock sicken without cause. I've nearly died in accidents no man could explain. Tell me, If not the covenant's wrath, what curse haunts us? The boy's voice softened. Maybe the curse is belief itself. Maybe men gave it power by fearing it. If we choose courage, maybe it starves. Maybe Jeremiah is only strong because we tremble. The room hung heavy with silence. Robert's shoulders slumped, exhausted by years of fear and guilt. The parchment seemed to pulse on the table, as though mocking them both. The boy stared at it with burning contempt. Robert finally whispered, "Your uncle will come again. He won't leave without claiming what he believes is owed. We must be ready, not just to resist him, but to resist the covenant itself." His hands shook. The boy stood, determination etched across his young face. "Then show me everything. Show me what Ezekiel wrote, what our fathers believed, what Jeremiah clings to. If I must fight this, I need to understand it." Robert studied him, torn between shielding his son and arming him with knowledge. Finally, he nodded. "Tonight, when the house is quiet, we'll go to the attic. That's where the rest lies, where our history hides." The boy nodded, heart pounding with equal parts fear and anticipation. He had grown up in that farmhouse, never imagining its dusted rafters held secrets more dangerous than rusted tools or forgotten keepsakes. Now they awaited. The day dragged on, each chore weighed by thoughts of parchment and covenant. The boy found himself glancing toward the horizon, expecting the rumble of Jeremiah's truck. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps returning. Evening came, shadows lengthening across the farmyard. Robert gathered his sons, speaking little at supper. His mind was far away, trapped in memories of a brother he no longer trusted and a promise he never wanted. Later, when lamps were dimmed and silence fell heavy across the rooms, Robert carried a lantern up the narrow stairs to the attic. The boy followed, heartbeat echoing in his ears louder than creaking wood. Dust coated the rafters, the air thick with age. Robert set the lantern down, its glow revealing boxes stacked high, trunks marked with initials, bundles of papers tied with twine. The boy shivered as shadows stretched long. Robert opened a trunk carefully, pulling out ledgers bound in leather, brittle journals, documents yellowed beyond time. "This is the weight we carry," he said quietly. "Every man before us recorded his fear, his bargain, his curse." The boy's hands trembled as he lifted a journal, the ink faded but legible. His eyes skimmed entries filled with prayers, rituals, accounts of accidents narrowly avoided, blessings claimed as signs of covenant fulfilled. His stomach churned. Robert opened another bundle, revealing a letter in spidery handwriting. It spoke of the old country, of pacts made under moonlight, of bloodlines preserved through forced unions. The words felt older than America, heavier than soil itself. The boy slammed the journal shut, unable to read more. "This isn't heritage, it's rot. It's poison passed from father to son. How could they believe this made them strong?" His voice cracked with anger. Robert's face was grim. "Because it worked just enough to make men doubt themselves. Just enough fortune to seem real. Just enough terror to bind their choices. That's how curses live. Half truth, half fear, full chain." The boy's fists clenched as he stared at the papers. "Then let's be the ones who burn it. Let's be the ones who end it. Jeremiah can't claim what no longer exists. We'll destroy the covenant." Robert hesitated, lantern light flickering across his weathered features. If only it were that simple. Fire may consume paper, but fear remains. And Jeremiah carries conviction stronger than flame. He will not stop at ashes. The boy's jaw tightened, resolve unbroken. "Then let him come. Let him bring every word, every curse, every ghost. We'll stand against him. We'll show him that men are stronger than the lies of dead ancestors." Robert closed the trunk slowly, eyes heavy with the burden of history. "You speak with courage, and I pray you're right. But Jeremiah believes the covenant breathes through us all. and belief. Belief can be harder to kill than flesh. The attic fell silent, but for the crackle of lantern flame. The boy looked around at the relics, the journals, the oaths etched in fading ink. He felt the weight of generations pressing down, yet defiance sparked brighter. Robert extinguished the lantern, plunging them into darkness. "Tomorrow we decide," he whispered. "Do we resist Jeremiah openly, or do we search deeper for a way to break this bond? Either way, the covenant has been revealed." The morning sun broke through clouds, but its light felt thin and weak, as though even the heavens struggled to pierce the heaviness clinging to the Whitmore farm. The land seemed weary, burdened. Robert walked the fields with his eldest son trailing close behind, boots sinking into damp soil. The crops should have stood tall this time of year, yet rows sagged, yellowed, brittle as paper left to rot. The boy bent low, running fingers across withered stalks. "This isn't drought," he murmured. "The rain's been steady. Something else is killing them." His voice carried both fear and the sharp edge of realization. Robert's jaw clenched. "It's begun again," he muttered, almost to himself. His eyes scanned the horizon as though expecting a figure to emerge. The curse wakes when the covenant stirs. The land feels it before men do. Cattle grazed nearby, their movements restless, heads jerking toward invisible sounds. One heifer staggered suddenly, collapsing in the mud with a strangled low. The boy rushed forward, but its body had already gone slack. Robert knelt beside the animal, pressing his palm against its side. Cold, lifeless. He exhaled heavily, shaking his head. "Healthy yesterday, gone today. That's how it starts. Crops, beasts, then men. The bloodline always pays." The boy swallowed hard. "You really think this is the covenant's doing?" Robert's silence spoke louder than any answer. His weathered hands gripped the fence rail, veins standing out like cords of rope against his skin. That evening, the family sat around the table, supper untouched. The farmhouse, once filled with warmth, seemed hollow. The boy noticed his younger brothers stealing anxious glances at their father, searching for assurance he couldn't give. Robert finally spoke, voice low. "When Ezekiel signed, he didn't just bind names. He bound this land, every stalk, every beast, every breath tied to the oath. Defiance weakens it. Obedience feeds it. That's the curse." The boy looked down at his plate, hands trembling. "So we're trapped? Either kneel to Jeremiah or watch everything rot." His words carried fury, but also the desperation of someone refusing to accept despair. Robert's eyes hardened. "There's always choice, but choice carries price. My father believed resisting invited ruin. Jeremiah believes submission brings fortune. Both may be right, both may be wrong. That's the terror of curses." Later that night, the boy lay awake, listening to the creaks of the house. Each groan of timber felt alive, each shadow on the wall stretched too long. He wondered if the curse whispered through them. His brother Danny stirred across the room, whispering hoarsely. "You awake?" The boy nodded, though silence answered. Danny shifted closer. "I dreamed again. Faces at the window, eyes like coals. They called me by name." The boy shivered. "I've seen them too," he admitted. "I thought they were just dreams. Maybe they aren't. Maybe it's part of the curse, creeping into our heads, trying to weaken us." His throat tightened. Danny clenched his fists. "I'm not afraid of dreams," he muttered, though his voice trembled. "But if they start walking through the door, I'll fight them with my own hands." His defiance burned fragile, but bright. The morning broke with an unsettling quiet. The farm should have echoed with roosters and the shuffle of cattle, yet the silence pressed heavy against the walls. The boy felt it in his bones. Robert stood at the window, eyes fixed on the horizon. His face was lined deeper than ever, shadowed with worry. "He's coming," he said softly. "The covenant's grip grows stronger with every sunrise." The boy joined him, fists clenched at his sides. Then let him come. We're ready now. We've seen the journals, uncovered the lies. He won't find us blind or bound anymore. Robert turned, gaze piercing. Readiness isn't enough. Courage without cunning is slaughter. Jeremiah believes himself chosen, backed by shadows. If we fight him with only rage, the curse will feast on our failure. The boy swallowed hard, but determination burned steady. Then we outthink him. We strip him of the covenant's power. He can't wield fear if we refuse to believe. He can't claim what we deny. At the table, the journals lay stacked, bound tight with rope. Danny entered quietly, eyes darting between father and brother. "I dreamed again," he said, voices chanting, Jeremiah standing in a circle of fire. Robert exhaled sharply. The curse is already whispering through him. Dreams aren't just dreams anymore. They're warnings or traps. He placed a hand on Danny's shoulder. "We fight together. No son stands alone in this." That afternoon, storm clouds gathered without rain. The air grew heavy, buzzing with static. Robert led his sons into the barn, away from prying eyes. "If Jeremiah comes tonight, he won't come unprepared. Neither will we." He opened an old chest, pulling out tools sharpened to edges, axes, sickles, and iron rods. "These won't kill shadows, but they'll remind Jeremiah he bleeds like any man. Faith in steel outlasts curses." The boy gripped an iron rod, feeling its weight ground him. "He calls himself firstborn, heir of covenant, but he's just flesh. He can bleed, break, fall." His words carried equal parts fury and hope. Danny tested the heft of a hatchet, grimacing. "If the curse comes with him, how do we fight what we can't touch?" Robert answered firmly. "You fight the man. Break him, and the shadow breaks too." Evening fell, the sky bruised purple and black. The brothers stood with their father by lantern light, faces lit with fire-like glow. The farmhouse seemed less home, more fortress, every creak warning of intrusion. Then came the rumble. Tires crunched gravel. Headlights cut through darkness, sweeping across fields like searchlights. Jeremiah's truck groaned to a halt, its engine hissing as though exhausted from carrying something unnatural. The boy's pulse quickened. Robert raised a hand, steadying him. "Remember, fear feeds it. Stand tall, no matter what he says." The door of the truck opened, and Jeremiah stepped out, pale eyes gleaming. He carried no weapon, only that cursed smile, half smirk and half threat. "Little brother," he called, voice carrying smooth across the night. "Have you reconsidered? The covenant waits. You know what it demands." Robert stepped forward, iron rod in hand. "What it demands is bondage. What it offers is ruin, dressed as fortune. We've seen the truth, Jeremiah. You're a slave calling himself master." Jeremiah's laugh was low, unsettling. "You think the curse lies? Look at your fields, your beasts. You've defied it, and it's already punishing you. Imagine what it will take when defiance turns to refusal." The boy strode beside his father, fire in his voice. "We won't bow. Whatever shadow you serve, it feeds only on fear. You'll find none here. This family isn't yours to claim." Jeremiah's eyes narrowed, pale gleam hardening. "Brave words from one who doesn't know the weight of promises. Bloodlines don't bend to will. They break men who deny them." His voice carried thunder, though the air was still. Robert raised his rod, stance firm. "Then let it try. Let the curse take its swing. We've buried enough of our own. Tonight, we bury this covenant even if it buries us with it." For a long moment, silence stretched, taut as a wire. Then Jeremiah's grin twisted. He stepped forward, each movement deliberate, as if he carried the curse itself with every stride across the dirt. The boy's grip tightened around iron. Danny flanked him, hatchet ready. Together they stood, brothers aligned, united by defiance. Robert's gaze swept them, pride mixing with fear. Whatever happened, they would face it as one. Jeremiah stopped a few feet away, staring at the bound journals stacked on the porch. "You've unearthed them," he said. "Good. Knowledge is power. But you've misread them. They aren't chains. They're scripture. They promise salvation." The boy shouted, "Salvation for slavery, prosperity for blood. That's no promise, it's poison. And you're drinking it willingly, Jeremiah. You've let fear rot your soul until shadows speak through you." His voice cracked with fury. Jeremiah sneered. "Better a servant of shadows than bones beneath barren fields. You'll see. When your resistance collapses, you'll beg for the covenant's shelter." His voice deepened, almost doubled, as if another spoke through him. The lantern flickered violently, shadows stretching across walls. The boy felt cold seep through his skin. Yet he raised his rod high, voice fierce. "We won't beg. We'll fight until either you break or we do." Jeremiah lunged suddenly, faster than expected. Robert swung his rod, catching his brother's arm with a sickening thud. Jeremiah staggered but didn't cry out, his grin widening even through pain. "Yes," he hissed. "Blood feeds it." The boy struck next, iron rod smashing against Jeremiah's ribs. He grunted, breath bursting, but his body did not collapse. Shadows coiled around him, making his form seem larger, monstrous, yet still human beneath. Danny swung his hatchet, blade grazing Jeremiah's shoulder. Blood splattered across the dirt. Jeremiah roared, a sound not entirely human, reverberating across fields like thunder rolling without clouds. Still, he staggered backward, clutching his wounds. Robert shouted, "Keep pressing! Don't give him space!" They advanced, striking again and again, each blow aimed not only at Jeremiah's body, but at the curse that clung to him like armor of smoke. Jeremiah's laughter echoed, even through pain. "Strike me, bleed me. Every drop feeds the covenant's hunger. You can't win. Shadows don't die by steel." Yet his steps faltered, his breath grew ragged, his voice shook. The boy pressed forward, rod raised high. Then maybe they die by will. Maybe courage is sharper than any blade. He brought the rod down hard, slamming Jeremiah to his knees, dust rising around them. Jeremiah spat blood, grinning still. "You think this ends me? The curse runs deeper than one man. When I fall, another rises. The covenant is eternal. You can't bury what breathes through blood." Robert planted his rod against Jeremiah's chest, forcing him to the ground. "Then let this bloodline be the one that refuses. Let this night be remembered as the night fear finally broke." His voice thundered. The boy raised his rod again, but Robert stopped him. "No. Killing him feeds it more. We strip him of power by denying him obedience, not by spilling endless blood." His eyes burned with clarity. Jeremiah snarled, struggling beneath their weight. Shadows writhed around him, clawing at the dirt like living things. Yet for the first time, doubt flickered in his pale eyes, as though defiance starved the curse's strength. The boy leaned close, voice sharp. "You hear that, Jeremiah? You don't own us. You never did. Whatever curse Ezekiel birthed, it ends here. Tonight we choose freedom, even if ruin follows." Jeremiah's breath came ragged, words faltering. "Fools! You'll bring famine, death." But his voice cracked, shadows peeling away like smoke in wind. For the first time, he looked less like a vessel, more like a broken man. Robert released him, stepping back. Jeremiah collapsed to the dirt, trembling, blood staining his shirt. The brothers stood together, rods raised, waiting. But Jeremiah only knelt, gasping, his form shrunken, his presence diminished. The boy exhaled, chest heaving. "It's not over," he muttered. Robert nodded grimly. "No, the curse won't vanish in one night. But tonight we proved it bleeds. Tonight we showed it can be resisted." Danny lowered his hatchet slowly, eyes wide with awe and fear. "Did we win?" Robert placed a hand on his shoulder, steady. "We fought, and we endured. Sometimes that's the first step to victory. The lantern flickered weakly, shadows pulling back into corners. The farm was silent again, heavy but less suffocating. Jeremiah remained on his knees, muttering words too faint to hear, his power broken for now. Robert gathered his sons close. This was only the beginning. Shadows don't surrender easily, but you've seen. Courage wounds them. Defiance starves them. Tonight, the battle began. Tomorrow we fight again, until freedom is ours. The boy looked at his father, at Danny, at the broken figure of Jeremiah in the dirt. His heart pounded with exhaustion and hope. The battle for freedom had started, and their bloodline would finish it. The sky dimmed early, clouds swallowing the last light before the sun even set. The farm stood cloaked in unnatural darkness, as if the land itself prepared for something ancient to awaken. Robert tightened shutters, his hands steady despite the tremor in his jaw. "Tonight decides it," he said. "Either we're free by dawn, or the covenant takes what it claims." His sons listened silently. The boy felt the air press heavy, thicker than any storm. The journals lay stacked on the table, every cursed word within them echoing in his head, demanding obedience his heart refused. Danny sharpened his hatchet slowly, the sound harsh against stone. "He'll come again, he always does, but tonight he won't leave with victory." His voice was steel, though his eyes betrayed unease. Robert placed an iron rod against the door frame, ready for whatever form his brother would take. "Fear won't open this door," he muttered. "Only flesh, only blood, and both can be stopped." The boy stood by the window, watching fields bend under invisible winds. Corn stalks swayed, though no breeze blew. Shadows rippled between rows, stretching unnaturally long, as though something unseen crawled closer with every moment. A low hum carried across the land, faint at first, then louder, like voices chanting in unison. The boy's chest tightened. "He's begun," he whispered. "He's calling it." The others prepared in silence. Suddenly the lanterns flickered, flames bending sideways, straining against some unseen pull. The house groaned, timbers creaking like voices under strain. Robert gripped the table hard, refusing to let his son see fear. Then came the sound, the truck's engine growling, tires crunching gravel. Jeremiah had returned. Headlights carved through darkness, spilling across the farmhouse like judgment. The hum outside rose to a chilling chorus. Robert motioned to his sons. "Stand firm. Whatever happens, don't yield." His voice was iron. The boy raised his rod. Danny lifted his hatchet, and together they waited as the truck door slammed. Jeremiah emerged slowly, silhouette monstrous in the beams of light. His pale eyes glowed unnaturally, his face gaunt, yet filled with strength not his own. Shadows clung to him like armor alive with hunger. He raised his arms wide. "This night," he declared, voice booming like thunder, "the covenant takes its due. Resist, and you die cursed. Obey, and you live blessed." His words struck like blades. Robert stepped outside, rod in hand. "Enough! The curse has fed long enough. Tonight it ends, Jeremiah. You won't bind another generation. We choose ruin over chains. We choose freedom." His voice shook the air. Jeremiah laughed, but the sound split, layered, as though more than one voice mocked him. "You can't kill what was promised. Blood calls for blood. The covenant is eternal." Shadows writhed around his body. The boy and Danny joined their father, standing shoulder to shoulder. The chanting outside grew louder, though no figures were visible. The land itself seemed to echo Jeremiah's madness, groaning beneath the weight of oath. Robert shouted, "Then let the covenant hear this. We break it tonight. We starve it. We deny it. Whatever curse rises, it dies here with us." He struck the ground with his rod, sparks flying. Jeremiah's eyes blazed. He lunged forward, faster than before, shadow trailing like smoke. Robert swung hard, the rod cracking against his chest. Jeremiah staggered, shrieking, but shadows surged to hold him upright. The boy struck next, smashing his rod across Jeremiah's shoulder. Danny followed with his hatchet, blade slicing deep. Jeremiah howled, blood spilling onto the dirt, yet laughter bubbled between gasps, as if pain fueled him. The house trembled violently, windows shattering, roof beams groaning. Whispers filled the air, words older than memory. The boy's ears rang, but he screamed back, "We don't hear you! You don't own us!" Jeremiah reeled, clutching his wounds. Shadows lashed outward, striking like whips. Robert shielded his sons. Rod raised, absorbing the blow. His body shook, but he did not fall. He stood unbroken, teeth gritted. The boy pushed forward, rod raised high. "This ends with us!" he shouted. He swung down hard, iron connecting with Jeremiah's skull. Blood splattered, shadows shrieked, and Jeremiah collapsed onto his knees, breath ragged. Danny pressed close, hatchet gleaming. "Yield or die," he hissed. But Jeremiah only grinned weakly, teeth bloodied. "You can break me," he rasped. "But the covenant lives. It breathes through you all." His voice wavered. Robert knelt, gripping his brother's collar. "Not anymore. It dies with you. With us refusing. With silence in place of obedience. Tonight, the bloodline severs itself from Ezekiel's curse." His words cracked like a final oath. Jeremiah spat blood onto the ground, shadows writhing desperately but weakening. The boy saw them fade like smoke in dawn. For the first time, Jeremiah looked less like a vessel, more like a dying man. The chanting outside faltered, voices breaking into static before vanishing. The night grew still, oppressive weight lifting slightly. Jeremiah slumped, eyes dimming, his strength draining with the curse unraveling inside him. Robert released him, stepping back slowly. The boy and Danny lowered their weapons, breathing hard. Silence spread across the farm, broken only by Jeremiah's ragged breaths as he collapsed flat onto the dirt. The boy whispered, "Is it over?" Robert shook his head. "Not over, but broken. The curse will lash out again, but tonight we proved it can be starved. Tonight we severed its grip." Danny dropped his hatchet into the dirt, chest heaving. "Then we'll fight again tomorrow, and the next day, until it fades forever." His voice trembled, but his eyes held steady with defiance. Jeremiah groaned faintly, voice fading. "You think you've won, but the covenant never dies." His words cracked. Robert answered firmly, "Curses die when men stop believing them. Tonight, belief ends. Tonight, fear ends." The lantern light burned steady, no longer flickering. The farmhouse stood firm, no longer trembling. Fields rustled with ordinary wind, not shadow. The land felt weary, but freer, as though it too resisted chains. Robert guided his sons back inside. Jeremiah lay where he had fallen, broken, muttering incoherent fragments. The boy glanced back once, heart heavy. He knew his uncle's fight wasn't just with them, but with himself. Inside, Robert stacked the journals once more. He poured oil over them, striking a match. Flames roared, consuming pages of curses, generations of fear. The boy watched as shadows twisted and died in smoke. The fire burned long, smoke seeping through rafters. The boy's chest tightened, but not with fear, with release. The covenant, once scripture, was now ash. Its power cracked, its hold broken, its lies undone. Robert placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "The battle isn't finished," he said, "but tonight we began its end. Tonight we chose freedom. Remember that. Carry it, not as burden, but as strength." The boy nodded, eyes fixed on the flames. Danny stood beside him, silent but resolute. Together they watched their inheritance turn to ash, their bloodline reborn not in bondage, but in defiance. Outside, dawn crept slowly, light piercing through thinning clouds. The farm glowed under pale sunrise, fragile but alive. Jeremiah's body lay still in the field, shadows gone. The covenant's grip had cracked at last. The boy exhaled, shoulders easing for the first time in years. "The final night," he whispered, "and the first morning." Robert smiled faintly, weary but proud. "Exactly so. Our bloodline walks free." They stood together in silence as sunlight spilled across the land, carrying no whispers, no weight, only the fragile promise of freedom earned through fire, steel, and courage. The covenant was finished.